All right, so you've been around Colombia for a long time.
Yes.
Aside from the 15 years that we were just talking about. Um, Over the years, have you seen instances of racial profiling by police, or has it happened to you?
Well, yeah, definitely. Coming up, I was stopped, you know, quite regularly, just to check my ID to make sure I don't have a warrant, but no reason to actually stop me. So I know I experienced it, and uh, even now, a couple of times I have been stopped, uh, but they uh, they had a better reasons to stop me. They were saying one time I failed to put on my turn signal,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and but they just gave me a warning and let me go once they ran my ID and found out who I was. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. You ever feel like they treat you poorly or differently because you're African American?
Well, they did. They did. Well, and since I've been back in pretty much my status in this community, they respect me, but uh, the young people that I work with, because I'm the founder and the executive director for the Youth Empowerment Zone, and I work with at-risk uh, teenage and young adults, uh, and a lot of the African American young males. They expressed to me that they're not treated in the best way when they get stopped. They're talked to very harshly. They, are treated with such a disrespect when they're being stopped. Um, and the thing about it is, because like I work with the police officers, I was on the hiring committee for the community police officers. And I know that it's not the whole police force, and I don't believe that it's in most cases intentional. I think it's systemic. Being raised in this society, it's that thought that young black males are criminals, that they commit most of the crime, and so it's one of those things that, and I'm not trying to make excuses or nothing, but I've been around long enough, and I'm working with the police officers and things, and I just don't think that the entire police force is consciously doing this. I think it's something that they're doing because this is the way that they was raised, and the thought pattern of the way they think. And that's something I think that it's going to have to be addressed. I'm glad that the awareness is out, because the first step to any type of change is admitting that there is a problem. Now, of course, the police chief said he don't think there is racial profiling, but the data that came out from the Attorney General proves that it is. Anytime African American is 1/10 of the population, and they get stopped 5 times more than anyone else, there's a problem with that. Why? Why? Because, as my young people said, I asked them, well, why did they stop you? And they said, driving black. That's their saying now. I said, driving black, what did that mean? So when he pulled me over, I asked him, why you pulled me over? He said, because you fit the profile of someone who just committed a crime, and so that's the reason why we're pulling you over.
So what did you think about Chief Burton denying that racial profiling?
Well, at first I was shocked that he would deny the stats. I was shocked. But after, we talked afterwards, I understood his rationale behind it. Number one, he believes in his police officer, and he don't believe that any of them intentionally does that. And I said, well, I can understand that. But nevertheless, it's happening. and that data proves that there's something wrong. So his argument was, well, I got to look and see why they are stopping them, because I don't think it's simply because of race. So I said, okay, well, go ahead and look at why. But after you get through with why, you can't factor out it's because they're African Americans. You can't, there's no way you can factor that out. There's got to be that correlation between the two. Because out of all the other citizens that's driving, why they're not getting stopped as much, you know?
Mm-hmm. And he said, you know, the data doesn't go far enough, and Sheriff Carey kind of shares the same viewpoint that, you know, it should include things like time of day or geographic location and things like that. You know, you think there's any credence to that rationale?
Sure, there's credence to it, because if you got more concentrated officers in quote unquote African American neighborhoods, why? Because these are high crime neighborhoods, when actually they just poverty, high concentration of poverty. Don't necessarily have to be crime. You know, the crime, if you look at that data where the crime is happening and everything, it's not these high crime areas. I mean, sure, there's crime in those areas also, but mainly it's just poor people. And so you are saying that simply because I'm poor and I'm African American, then I'm more prone to violate the law. And so that gives you a right to stop me more. Okay, well, let's look at the data. Well, like in my case, I didn't put on my turning signal. But I have done that in my neighborhood and didn't get stopped. But when I was down here in the Columbia Housing Authority area, that's where I got stopped, on Park Street. Now, I'm quite sure there's a whole lot of citizens out there that have done the same thing, failed to turn on their signal out on Nifong and different areas. But you don't get stopped. The concentration of police officers is not there. And even if they are there, they're not going to just pull you over for that. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we got to come to admit. You know, sure, you can look at the data, why they've been stopped, what time of night. It doesn't matter. The bottom line is you concentrating on a certain segment of people in our community. So whatever you say you want to look at it. But the bottom line is this is what's going on here. And somehow we got to stop this. Everybody that's poor and black is not a criminal and shouldn't be pulled over just because I want to go to the store at 2 o'clock in the morning, or, you know, I feel like riding 2 o'clock in the morning. What, I can't do that without getting pulled over because I'm black?
So what do you say to the young men that you mentor when they tell you that they feel like they've been pulled over because they're black?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing I tell them is, you know, do whatever that officer say, because you don't want to lose your life. You can't get your life back. And we don't want an incident that happened up in down in Louisiana, Minnesota, to happen here in Columbia. So remember, live to fight that battle the next day or day after that. Because I believe that if you can live through it and we can get the story and we can find out, because we're going to have to start investigating. Now, the system is set up, as I said, where a lot of them will not even go through it, because why would I file a complaint to the police about a police? You know, that's like the chicken filing a complaint about the wolves to the wolves. You know, it don't make sense. So they are disenchanted with that whole system, and they feel like there's no justice in that. And I believe that that's the way it have been, and that's the reason why some of these things are exploding around the nation, because there's no recourse for being treated unjustly, that they feel like they can get some justice. It's hard to believe that if I file a complaint against a police officer with the police, that I'm gonna get some justice. So there's, again, it's systemic, in my opinion.
Just underlying issues, like you said, of just how things have gone in our country.
Sure.
for
I mean,
centuries.
it's so ingrained in the fabric of this country. If you go up to the courthouse on what they call Law Day, Monday, you're gonna see it as blatant as my hand. Practically 99% of everything that's in judgment seat or in authority is white. At least 90% of those that's going before them is black. I mean, it's just so blatant that it's you know, how are we missing this? And then you look at the data that young black males get twice as harsh sentence, you know, first-time offense. I sat on the disproportionate minority contact committee, where the stat says young black boys get committed to the juvenile system more than any other racial group or gender group. Why? You know, all the way up. You know, young black males, they are kicked out of school more, suspended, drop out of school. You know, all of these stats is letting us know that there's a serious problem in all these different systems where the same thing is becoming apparent, and the data is showing. You know, more young black males go to prison and get longer sentences than any other racial group. You know, it's out there.
Mm-hmm. What do you think possible solutions or things that police could do, or I mean anybody I guess could do to try to change any of it?
First thing is admit that it need to be changed, and that's why I have my problem with Chief Burton and Sheriff Dwayne. You know, I don't care if you look at it. You got to admit that there's a problem in order for us to even think about trying to come up with solutions. You know, first of all, if I don't admit that I got cancer, why would I listen to you about giving me chemo or radiation? I don't have no problem. Let's look at this thing. And I understand, do your due diligence with investigating, and I believe if you look at it with open mind and an open heart, you're going to see the problem. You're going to see it. And that's the first step. We got to see that there is a problem and then start working on solutions. But until I admit that there's a problem, that this thing is going on, we'll never try to stop it. Because and there's nothing wrong. My officers is not pulling over black folks, racial profiling because they're black. No, they pulling over them because there was a report that somebody did a burglary and it was a black guy. So, okay, let's go out on knife hunt. There's a report that a white guy robbed a bank. Are you pulling over every white guy that got brown hair and blue eyes? Come on. I'm like the guy on the Sports Center. Come on, man. this is ridiculous, you know, because I see that all the time. There's a white guy that does it, but you're not pulling over everyone that even looked remotely like that. Why? Because you're going to get sued. You're going to get sued.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just do that in this society. You know, again, I'm from Columbia. I love Columbia. I'm not anti-police. I'm first one gonna call the police if something happened in my house or whatever, you know, and I'm expecting those officers to come and do their job. I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't do your job, but I'm saying that it should be done properly and unbiasedly. You got to stop just pulling folks over because they're black, especially young black males. It's making these young black males bitter, they angry. They already seem to be shut out of the economic system, can't get jobs, you know. You pulling them over, and sometimes they get arrested for crimes they don't do, but they don't have the money to get a lawyer. The public offender is going to try to talk them in. If you go to trial, you're going to get 20, 25 years. But if you plead guilty, I can get you 4 years. But I didn't do it. I know. But if you go to trials, you're going to lose. Why? Because I don't have enough time to investigate, even go in and talk to your witnesses. I got 200 cases. So a lot of these kids, they plead guilty. Well, I can get you probation. This is your first offense. Plead guilty and I get you probation and you won't go to prison. And they've been sitting in the county jail for 9 months. Can't make bond because it's not a bond, it's a ransom note, $1 million of a kid that have never even left, very seldom even got out of his neighborhood. And then he's a flight risk. Come on. That kid is not a flight risk. Well, he's dangerous to society, and we got to put $1 million bond on him because he was charged with a robbery, and this kid ain't did nothing. But now I got a felony conviction, the scarlet letter F is on me. I can't get a job. It done killed my opportunity to advance in this society. So what am I? The only industry that's gonna harm me is the drug industry and the crime industry. I got 2 kids. They done piled up child support on me while I'm locked up. I had a job, Mr. Lawson, and I was taking care of my child support, but now my child support done backed up for 9 months and I got thousands of dollars